Gene, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's a pleasure. I really, really wanted to talk to you in further depth after we met at Open Source Austin.
Yep.
This past week. You led our little table, and I thought you did an awesome job. I could tell
Thank
you have
you.
experience leading a group. And so, obviously, as we talk more, I learned more about your experience.
Sure.
And you just became more interesting of a person that I wanted to talk to. And so I'm really happy to have you here.
Yep.
And maybe you can give a little intro about yourself,
Sure.
just so the world knows
Yep.
who you are before we get into some of the details of what we can talk about today.
Yeah, we'll give you all the layers and then we'll peel them back, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so, also a pleasure meeting you. You really intrigued me. You know, being a young professional, it's really exciting to see young people way far beyond where I was when I was your age. So I'm happy to be here. But yeah, my name's Gene Griffin. We'll start off with the personal stuff that I think is important. I'm a husband. I'm a father to a beautiful 14-year-old daughter. I'm a DJ, so I love music. But professionally, I run a mortgage operation. We specialize in residential investment and commercial real estate lending, and we do some other commercial business lines of credit and loans like that. Yeah.
How'd you ever get started with lending in the first place? We talked about how we were going to get into childhood experiences, trauma, but before even going that deep at all,
Sure.
Finance is definitely that has some stereotypes to it.
Yep.
And lending is a whole different level from Wall Street finance as well.
Yep.
So you're more in the mortgage lending, commercial lending side of things.
Yes.
How'd you find that?
Great question, because I didn't dream of being in finance as a child. In fact, my dad's a classically trained musician, went on to be a manufacturing engineer. My mother is an artist of all mediums. So not the birthplace of what you would think a finance person to be in. So I actually pursued a career in the music industry, you know, kind of fresh out of high school. And I grew up in Houston, Texas. I was around some incredible musicians, but Houston just was, well, not knocking Houston. I love Houston, but it's very spread out. Big city, urban sprawl. And what Houston lacked at that time for me was the sense of community within the music industry. Austin was obviously right down the street, and it was booming in the music industry. It was known as the music capital, Austin music capital of the world, right? So I came to Austin to pursue a career in the music industry. I started my own artist services firm where we provide management, tour management, marketing, PR, basically anything artists needed, we provide it. Had a lot of fun doing that. Got to tour the country, make some great friends that are still very close friends of mine. Got to work with some incredible artists, some that have emerged to go on and do some amazing things. Worked with some great companies. And here's the thing. This was when digital media was really coming out, and it really shook the music industry. So having a lot of fun is one thing, but being able to pay your bills is another, right? So I was having a lot of fun, but wasn't paying the bills. About that time is when I found out I was going to be a father. So then I had to make a change. I had to make a decision. In fact, we'll kind of get back to it. That's why I DJ now. It's how I keep my toe in the music, right? But I joined corporate America at that point. There was a local company here that I would drive by every day. They're right outside where I lived, and they had an awesome sign that was a little intriguing. I wasn't sure exactly what they did, and I looked them up. I was like, okay, that sounds pretty interesting. So one day I put on a suit and I walked in, and I told them I was there for my job. And they said, well, what job? We don't, I'm like, I don't know. What do you got? So I started off with that company as a customer service representative, and quickly rose within that company to take on some pretty large initiatives that were on the VP of Strategic Development's desk. I grew those initiatives pretty significantly. Was, flying around to conferences for this company. But then I was looking at my paycheck and I was like, well, I just grew their inventory to about $500 million. And I'm making about $40,000 a year. Something's not adding up here. friend of mine worked at a company in finance. It was kind of like a financial brokerage that serviced other lending institutions. But it was kind of scary for me because it was 100% commission. And I had a daughter at that point. Walk away from a job that provided health insurance and a base salary and, a path to growth, to dive into something I didn't know. And, you only eat what you kill kind of thing. It was very scary. And I remember my friend Justin Cook, we're still friends to this day. We actually spoke recently. I remember he told me, he's like, look, I know you. I know how hard you work. I know your intelligence level. If you come here and you suck at this job, you're going to triple your income. I was like, okay, sign me up. So I dove in to the finance world. And when I got there, it was a little intimidating, right? I didn't know much about finance, which we'll kind of get back to that. That's another thing that kind of drives me in the finance world, but didn't know a lot about finance, didn't know a lot about credit. My parents grew up in a time where that information just wasn't there. And if you're not taught that, you learn the hard way, or you just don't learn, right? So I got in and I was looking around the room here at this office, and it's buzzing. It's a sales floor, right? They're making calls, guys and girls, and they're closing deals. Very boiler room feel without the illegal aspects of it, but it was a good energy. And I'm like, okay, I was a little intimidated at first, but then I realized that, all right, what can I do to compete or at least pay the bills? I can be extremely efficient and I could work harder, right? So if I work harder and I'm efficient, I can do more than the average person, right? I can touch more, I have more opportunity. So I did that. And then about 3 months in, the actual business side of the finance really starts to click. I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of know what I'm talking about here a little bit. So then I kind of rose the sales board. I was top 10. And about 6 months in, I'm real dialed in and I really know what I'm doing. And now I'm top salesperson for the company pretty much every month. And then at that point, I took on a management position. And that's really what got me into finance. I capped out in that part of finance. I did about 7,000 transactions nationwide, more than anybody else in the country. I was making more money than I could make, I think, at that position. I was turning down executive level positions because I'd actually make less money and have to come in earlier. I was like, no, I'm good. So then I started mentoring. All right, I felt that was important to share, and we can touch on that too because I place a huge responsibility and importance on mentorship. And at that point, it was, well, I've hit the ceiling here. It's time to try something else. So what I did in that aspect, the way I looked at it is I could make a small positive impact on a great amount of people. In the mortgage world, I can make a great impact on a small amount of people, but now I can scale that and impact a lot of people in a big way. So, yeah.
That's really cool. So when you were doing the sales journey,
Mm-hmm.
I've had a few sales folk on the podcast, and one of my good friends, he's very good at sales as well.
Sure.
I would like to think that I'm not a terrible salesperson.
Okay.
But I'm also not the greatest salesperson ever.
Sure.
And I often undersell the things that I'm selling, and I struggle with talking about things in the way that another person wants me to talk about. I talk about things that make me excited,
Sure.
and not necessarily the thing that would get the other person excited. And I work on that. It's a constant process of trying to refine it, and that's not necessarily something I'm working on daily. I should be working on it more. I'm very technical, so I'm coding a lot and working on building out team structure for my marketing agency as well. And I just haven't been in that position where sales is the key factor to my growth, but it's starting to become that way. I just finished writing the code and finalizing the product for my alpha for Maiden, which is a software that I developed to help graphic designers, anybody, basically be able to create professional level graphic designs.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Very quickly. Yeah. So it's taking the skill out of making designs that other people might have. And really, now that the alpha initial version is complete, there's so much more work to be done.
Oh, yeah.
But it's also, how do I now start to focus on getting people into the tool so then I can then have people try it and then give me feedback and see where I should continue to improve it.
Sure.
And so the being able to convey the benefits and the reasons why someone should be using Maiden is really important, and it's been something that I've been refining. What would you say is the biggest reasons that someone would buy something? What are the emotions they have to feel to buy? And then what are the things that you try and do to make them make that decision?
Great question. So I've been in the status that you're in before, right? It's kind of funny. I call it, that first, when you're building out your alpha, which for me, it was building out my executive summary and my revenue models, right? And I call it that time in my life, I was locked in the cave. It's a very lonely place to be. I mean, I was pulling all-nighters. I'd wake up in the middle of the night. I'd go up to my office and I'd work on this stuff because nobody was calling me during that time. I could really focus. And then you get to that point where you're like, I think we're good. And you have this huge sense of accomplishment for a day. And then you realize, crap, I've got so much more stuff to work and think about now, right? So a great question you have here. So what I try to do is, in fact, this is part of my sales pitch when I talk to people. Like, hey, Michael, I've been in sales 20 years. I don't want to sell anything. I'm tired of selling things. I'm going to send you a bullet point email that really lays it all out there. Check that out. I think you'll appreciate what I send you. And then let's just have a consultation with no heavy lifting, right? That really takes the air out of the room. It humanizes you. People are going to go look at that email I sent. I get incredible feedback on the email. It has a lot of bullet points about what we offer, how we work, the solutions that we have. And my final bullet point is I'm human, right? That means that I'm not perfect. I work very hard not to make mistakes, but if I do make a mistake, I work even harder to make it right, right? So what I'm trying to do is not put myself in a canoe next to my potential client or partner. I'm trying to be in that canoe with them, guiding them, right? And I feel like that approach takes that pressure of being sold out of the equation, and it also humanizes me as a person. And now we're in this canoe together, right? And because of that approach, it's not uncommon for me to go have dinner or a drink with a client well after we complete a transaction, right? We actually create a relationship. And I also don't put myself on a pedestal to where I'm not approachable. At the end of the day, there's a lot of ego in finance. There's a lot of ego in tech too, right? But why? I'm not better than anybody else. I'm not an electrician. I can't fix your electricity or your electrical systems. I'm not a plumber. I can't fix your plumbing. I'm a finance guy. And I'm really good at what I do, but that doesn't mean I'm better than anybody else. I'm just a guy and I'm good at that, right? And I think having that mentality and consistently checking your ego, it allows you to be authentic, and people resonate with that. People can see through BS. Most people can. And if you're pushy and too salesy and you put too much emphasis on the sell aspect and not just the human and authenticity, that shines through. And the authenticity and human factor also shines through. People want to feel comfortable. They don't want to feel like they're getting swindled. They want to feel like this person understands my goals and they're here to help me achieve my goals. And I even tell my clients, look, we don't worry about the transaction. We get paid commissions on transactions, right? And I teach my team, don't worry about the money, right? Focus on helping your clients achieve their goal or solve their problem. And when you do, the financial reward follows, right? So I think, the anti-sales approach really works, but also is knowing your audience, right? I've had clients walk away because I won't cater to specific things like other competitors do. We talk about interest rates, right? What's the interest rate? Well, there's about 50, 60 different factors that go into determining an interest rate. Well, these other lenders gave me interest rates. I can do the same, but it means nothing. It's really just a waste of your time. And I think it's a mental check in your brain, but it really means nothing until you're ready to lock your interest rate. I can tell you we beat 9 out of 10 lenders all day long, and we're the right choice because we really are advisors. In fact, we call ourselves mortgage advisors, not mortgage loan officers. I can give you what they give you, but it doesn't mean anything. And I've had clients walk away, and you know what? That's okay, right? It may not have been a good fit. But people that are willing to understand the value that we provide truly experience that through the process. And that's why we have repeat clients. That's why we get referrals, because that's the real money. When people come back to you, when people feel comfortable, like, hey, you got to talk to my guy, Gene. He's the guy. He's the GOAT. That's where the real financial reward comes, right? It's not in one transaction. It's in a lifetime of a relationship and a lifetime of transactions. So to really answer your question, I'd say know your audience, set your boundaries, right? What you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do, and just be yourself, be authentic. If you believe in what you're selling, you're not selling. You're just being you, talking about something you like.
Yeah, some of the best advice that I feel like I've gotten that you're reiterating in a way, but going way more in depth on, is that to sell something, in being in the canoe with the person, it's about guiding the person to the right spot, even if it might not necessarily be your spot. But if I'm believing that my spot is the best spot,
right,
it's either an informational problem where the other person doesn't realize that my spot's the best spot. Oh, there's marshmallows over there. I didn't know about that. Thanks for letting me know. Guide me over there, please. And it's about presenting the information in the correct way to have the person actually realize, oh my gosh, the thing that I've been wanting is actually over there.
Well, that's where being an advisor comes in. I have a client right now reaching out. This is what I want to do. As I'm reading it, I'm like, that's a terrible approach. But I'm not telling them that. I'll talk to anybody. I'll let them say what their goal is, and I'll say, okay, I understand what you're looking to do. I think there's a better path, right? And what I tell my clients is like, I just want to get all your puzzle pieces, right? Let's get all the puzzle pieces. Let me put them on the table. And my job is to put this puzzle together the best way possible for you. And a second best way, and a third best way, right? And if that aligns with what you initially came in with, great. If not, you should take my advice. But if you don't want to, you can, it's your choice, right? But you're absolutely right. Guiding it. Just get in the boat. And, maybe there's some scenery over there we want to go check out, right? That you didn't know existed, right? But absolutely, yeah.
How are you training up your teams to do sales? Do you have scripts?
We do have some scripts. It's kind of challenging in our business. I have a recent infatuation with an animal that I use. I use a lot of metaphors and analogies, but I watched the Octopus Project years ago, right? And it blew my mind, the octopus. It can change colors. It can change shapes. It can, grab shells and create shields for itself. And it has 8 tentacles that are all free thinking, right? So I tell my team, treat your business like an octopus, right? Yes, you're going to do social media, but don't make social media everything. It's just one tentacle, right? Digital marketing, networking, all these things are different tentacles. And sometimes one really strikes, and then you can focus more on that for the time being, but you don't want to give up on everything else, right? So when we talk about training my team, so one of the things I say is, look, if I could write one book on how to be successful in this business, I would have wrote it 2 years ago. But the fact is there's so many different paths you can take your business. So within our team, we do something called micro support, not micromanagement, meaning we're a client acquisition business development business, right? So let's find out what your market is like, because the market in Austin might be very different than the market in San Antonio, and it is, right? What is your market like? Okay, what do you like to do? What don't you like to do? What are the things that you have anxiety about, right? For some people, it's networking. They have social anxiety, and that's challenging for them. Okay, noted, right? For some people, they have no problem with that, but they're just not very technical. Okay, noted. So we kind of do a profile of each person, and then we build a business that wraps around them, right? That's from networking tips to expanding your comfort zones, all the technical stuff, loans. We'll learn that over time. The really important thing is connecting with people and bringing a business. Otherwise, there's no technical things to support, right? So training, we really do it. If somebody's brand new to the industry, we pair them with a mentor. We want them to see through their eyes, hear through their ears, and just hear the day-to-day. Then we really start to structure the micro support aspect. Okay, here's a game plan for your business. We had a loan officer, a mortgage advisor that was really into fishing, like in competition fishing, like bass fishing. I'm like, oh, okay, that's new, but okay, cool. Don't get me wrong, I like to fish, but never thought about competition fishing. I'm like, okay, so do you go to these competitions? She did. I was like, okay, well, there you go. That's your community, right? That's the community you're in. Now, we want you to bring your business with you to that community. We don't want you to show up at a fishing competition with a stack of business cards, just hand them out, but go in with intention, right? I want to connect with two people. And when we talk about networking, actually, I tell my team, go to one professional networking event a week and one personal networking event. Professional networking event, pretty straightforward, right? Since we're in real estate, maybe not always go to real estate events, right? You're going to be one of 6 lenders there. You're going to be a small fish in a big pond, right? Maybe go to something more towards founders or that's just completely adjacent, different business industry. Because at the end of the day, every human in America is our clientele, and some even outside of America, right? So we're lucky in that fact. So when they go to these professional networking events, okay, be intentional. Find 2 people, really connect with those people, right? You're going to look around the room and say, oh, I want to connect with everybody here. And that's just not reasonable. But if you find 2 people and you really connect with them and you ask them first about themselves, hey, tell me about you, Michael. What do you do? What do you like to do outside of work? What do you do for work? Right? And eventually, human nature, people get tired of talking about themselves. So that usually lasts about 2 minutes, and that window is wide open for you to share what you do, right? If they don't even ask you first, right? They usually will say, well, I've said enough about me. Tell me about you. Oh, I'm glad you asked. Well, this is what I do, right? And now you have a real connection. Another aspect of that is talking about 2 clicks louder than you normally do. That way you're engaging with the person, they're hearing everything you have to say, but maybe a person or 2 around you is also picking up on that. You may not be able to connect with that person, but they're going to remember you. They're going to remember the things you said. They're going to remember what you talked about. So at the next networking event, and that person might be there, hey, I didn't get a chance to talk to you, but I did see you there. I'd love to connect. Now you got 2 more people, right? In a client acquisition world where you're not necessarily in a corporate structure, in the corporate structure, you're climbing a ladder. You either climb that ladder until the ladder stops for you, or your arms get tired, or somebody's blocking your path, right? In the client acquisition field, it's a net, right? The more you network, the more people you connect with, the bigger your net gets, right? Your network is your net, right? On the personal networking, same mentality, right? Nobody wants to be the soccer dad's like, hey, work with me. But if you connect with 2 people and you talk about what they do first, they're going to find out what you do. And you do that enough, activity plus accountability equals results. That's our motto for 2025. If you're not putting in the activity and you're not holding yourself accountable, you're not going to get results. But if you put in the activity and you hold yourself accountable, it's inevitable that you're going to get results. So,
yeah, it's even the anxious person who's scared of going to the networking events. You can be anxious and still go, and boil it down to how many cards did I give out? How many people did I talk to? How many of those 2-minute conversations did I have? And less about the emotion. I know, for example, yesterday, I was just really anxious for no reason.
Sure.
Negative self-talk.
Yeah.
Didn't want to do work at all.
Yeah.
But still did the work.
You showed up.
Showed up, worked, and I really just tried not to really think about what I was have the thoughts turn into the action that I'm doing, and just focus on continuing to take action despite the thoughts.
Yep.
Because it's really the action that shows up. It's not the thoughts that show up.
Well, and, on the social anxiety aspect of it, not even social anxiety, just you're tired, you don't want to go do it, right? It's like, I'm really don't want to leave the house or the office and go do this right now, but I'm going to. That fades away very quickly once you actually get there and start engaging, right? And for people that do have social anxiety, this is really part of that micro support that we lean into. Okay, instead of connecting with two people, let's find one. Let's start there. You know, I look at a comfort zone as an actual zone, right? Like a border, right? I want you to put 1 foot out of your comfort zone, 1 toe out of your comfort zone, and go connect with one person at this networking event, right? Do that about 6 times, 6 events. Connect with the one and leave if you have to, right? Whatever you got to do, just connect with one person. After about the 6th time, naturally you're connecting with 2 people because your comfort zone has expanded. And you look down and you don't have 1 toe in that comfort zone. Now both feet are in that comfort zone. And you just continue to grow that, right? And then before you know it, you might be on a stage speaking about this. And you're like, wow, this is crazy. A year ago, I didn't want to go talk to anybody. But now I'm confident and comfortable. And I've challenged myself and pushed my comfort zone in a effective way that wasn't too much too fast. And I have evolved as a professional and a human, just as an individual as well.
Right now, where are you pushing your personal comfort zone?
Oh boy. I would say I'm really coming into my leadership self, right? I try to remain pretty humble, and there's part of that self-doubt that you mentioned, right? Everybody fakes it till they make it at some point in their life. But at this point in my career, I'll say this first, I've never, no complacency. I'm always a work in progress. I will continue to work on myself until the day I die. And what's nice about that work is the professional work is also personal work too, right? So I'm really coming into not selling myself short as a leader, being proud of who I've become and the work that I've done to get here, realizing that I do have an impact on people, and, you know, it's positive now, but I have to maintain that, right? Continue to do the work to maintain a positive impact on people. But I would say coming into my own as a strong, good leader.
Yeah, something that's pretty powerful, because for me, there's so many parts of just entrepreneurship that are new to me as someone who's, I just started like 2 years ago, basically. Mm-hmm. And it's, for me, I've noticed myself being scared for a lot of decisions.
Right.
And something that I picked up from some podcast somewhere was how it's about not necessarily being confident. I don't have to be confident in my ability necessarily.
Right.
I just have to be courageous that I will eventually be able to, like, that I can do it.
Yes.
And so I will build up the confidence. And now I'm confident in so many things that I wasn't confident before.
Yeah.
But it all starts with doing the one thing, just having a moment of courage.
Sure.
And the cool part about that is then that the courage, it doesn't just have to be, it can be in the moment. Courage can also be built up.
Sure.
You can hype yourself up. You could do a lot, and all it takes is just jumping over the fence, just doing the one little step. And then once that's completed, now you have some experience, and now you can look back and being like, oh, I did that.
Right.
And now I can have confidence that if I see another fence that's X amount of height, I can then jump that fence again, and I can continue forward. And it's only a question then when it gets higher, but then you compare the height of that, and I look at the height of this. This is weird how I'm talking about jumping over fences, but you compare the height of this new fence, and how high is that compared to how I thought the first one was?
Right.
And oftentimes the next one, while it seems really high, it might be even higher or a bigger jump.
Yeah.
But in comparison to the first step, it's usually shorter.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great point. If you think about it, what you're explaining there is parallel in many, many aspects of life, right? Let's talk about the gym. I could spend more time in the gym, but you don't start out in the gym trying to lift 200 pounds, right?
Yeah.
You start off where you can. And then if you stay at it, you get more and more comfortable lifting more. You add more weight, right? And then next thing you know, you're ripping 200 pounds and you're like, wow, I started with 45, right? Or whatever, 90. But absolutely. But I think another important aspect of that is, when you jump that fence, getting comfortable in the grass that you're standing in, right? Give yourself a pause. Because if you just start leaping fences, you're going to leave a lot behind.
Yeah.
So getting comfortable where you stand
Hmm.
and saying, okay, I'm ready for that next fence now. Or that extra 50 pounds or whatever the case may be. And to take that a bit further, as far as the confidence aspect you mentioned, when we have brand new people to our industry come onto the team, first most important thing is understand the landscape of our business. Otherwise, you're lost, right? So understand the landscape. We focus on training, what that looks like, what your job looks like, what you have. And then we build up their confidence. We've got thousands of loan programs, hundreds of lenders. Literally, you can go down a rabbit hole. What we teach our team is don't try to memorize all these things. It's one, it's impossible. Two, it's not the best use of your mental capacity. Understand how to read a loan, what we call a loan matrix, which is basically a roadmap for a specific loan. Understand how to read that, read it fast, and apply it, right? So focus on that. That's good because things change, right? So if you can look at a loan matrix and read it and understand it very quickly, you can do anything, any loan. So take that with the fact that you know that you have support, that we're going to help you work through anything that comes across your desk, build up your confidence, and just go have conversations with people. When you get an opportunity for business, we're going to help you work through it, right? So that doesn't really help entrepreneurs too much because usually it is pretty lonely out there. But I think, surrounding yourself with like-minded people as well that you can talk to and have open conversations with will help you build up your confidence as well.
There's always some step forward that can be taken where it's like one of my big theses as a person is how can I make today such that tomorrow I will be a better person or be in a better position than I was today.
Yeah.
And if I do that today, even no matter how small that is, when I wake up tomorrow, I'll be in a better spot.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't always work out because sometimes you have to take a step backwards to go 2 step forwards. And maybe it's a step back to go step forward, but then be able to take another step eventually. Because sometimes you go down the wrong route. But the intention to just continue progressing is so it's relevant for everyone.
I told my team, do something to push your business forward every single day. And I use the example, look, I was on my honeymoon in Mexico, brought my laptop with me, but I was just doing maintenance. If an email comes in that's something I need to address, I'm going to send the email back. I'm going to communicate. And for that day and that time, that was what I was doing to push my business forward. I did not let it take away from what we were there to celebrate, but I knew that, hey, if something comes in, it's an opportunity that could put food on the table, then a simple email, a simple communication goes a long way. And you said something else here that I use a lot of one-liners, but I believe this stuff. I've had clients that come to me, I want to buy this boutique hotel. I'm okay, well, let's get the puzzle pieces. Let's see what we're looking at. Okay, you've got 6 multifamily properties that you own. 2 are under renovation, so they're not bringing in any revenue. All this stuff's cross-collateralized. I call it the web of debt. And I said, you're not buying a hotel. I'll tell you right now, right? What he's trying to do is take a step forward when he really needs to take a step back. I said, what you really need to do is take a step back. Let's clean up this debt. Let's untangle this web of debt. Maybe sell off these properties that aren't doing anything for you. Let's restructure and clean this up so that you can actually take steps forward. Otherwise, if you start taking steps forward without taking necessary steps back sometimes, you can lose everything, right? So sometimes you've got to take a step back, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's really being aware of what's going on with your business, your professional life, things like that. Take a step back and then keep pushing forward until you have to take the next one, right?
So tell me about your family and when did you, how old were you when you became a father?
I was, I was about 30, 29.
29. So that's probably actually pretty average.
Yeah.
old for when it was like 60
Right.
years ago.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But now it's probably getting like, that's like youngish
Yeah.
for some folk. But I know some people from my high school already have kids. So,
Yeah.
I mean, everyone has kids at different times.
Right.
But most people have come on, everyone that's come on so far is pro family,
Yeah.
pro relationships.
Sure.
I haven't had anyone who's really against that yet, which is probably
You'll
gonna be a
find somebody
struggle.
eventually,
Yeah.
but yeah.
In Austin, it might be difficult. In Oregon, there's more of them.
Right.
But I'm curious about your perspective on how business and family interrelate, because so many great founders in history have often sacrificed their family for their business. But also there's stories of founders who have made the choice to keep both. And it's not necessarily something that has to be sacrificed, but everyone has their own way of handling it. So I'd be curious how you've handled it and what role it plays for you.
That's a fantastic question. So I have a small family. It's me, my wife, and my daughter. I am remarried. So my wife is my daughter's stepmom. They have a really special relationship. We all get along with my daughter's mom. Everything's copacetic, but that didn't just happen. It took work. It took understanding. It took compromise, right? And that's really what it takes, I think, to maintain that family. It's not always easy. There's nights I've worked all night, and just physically, it's going to affect your mood. You might be a little shorter, right? Your responses may not be as thought out as they should be, right? So I think the biggest thing with any relationship, professional, personal, family, is dialogue and communication, right? I have somewhat of a flexible schedule, so I'll pick up my daughter from school at least once a week. And she gets out of school right in the middle of the workday, right, the afternoon. So I'm usually on a call, or I've got to rush to an appointment. And I remember this was last year. I was picking her up. She was in 7th grade. And I was constantly apologizing to her for being on the phone or being on a call. And then I got to the point where I was like, I don't want to apologize anymore. I want to approach this in a different way. So we sat down. I was like, hey, I always apologize for being on the phone, but I want to talk through that a little bit. She's like, oh, it's not a big deal. I was like, I know, but let's talk about it. One is understanding, hey, this is in the middle of my workday, so that makes sense as to why I'm always on the phone. But 2, what am I doing? What kind of work do I do? How does it make a positive impact on society? And on top of that, what am I trying to do with this business, right? And for a 13-year-old kid, that's an interesting conversation from dad, right? But what it does is it paints that picture. Oh, okay. Dad helps people become homeowners and build generational wealth and solve financial issues through financing. That's pretty cool. So now the work that I do has a little more value behind it. Those calls mean more to a 13-year-old child. Okay, well, what am I trying to do with this business? What I'm trying to do is build a life for my family they never imagined was possible. And that doesn't mean just a bunch of money in the bank account. It means creating memories, vacations, comfort, low-stress environment back at home, right? Now, when you look at it through those 2 lenses, there's way more understanding, right? And it's more so when you're building your business that you're all in, right? And the goal, or for me, I think is like, it takes sacrifice to do this. I've got to pull all-nighters and I got to work 7 days a week sometimes, but there's a means to an end, right? My goal is to get to what I call the Texas cruise control, which is 85 miles per hour. I'm comfortable at 99, but there's not a lot of longevity there. I'm way more comfortable at 85 miles per hour, right? So now that we've established our business, we still got a lot of work to do, but now that we've established and we're refocusing things, part of that refocus is, okay, how do we dial back and get to 85? How do I delegate, put the right people and systems in place that I can reclaim some of that time back, right? So that's between my daughter and I. My wife and I, she's an entrepreneur herself, so she does understand, but it still takes work. I mean, we will butt heads sometimes, and, in full transparency, we do couples counseling, marriage counseling, And we try to not hold on to things because the resentment is really what the underlining thing that causes the arguments or the spats, I guess. And if we learn to let go of resentment and respect each other and what we're trying to do, again, back to the vision, I think there's way more clarity. It's easier to maintain that relationship and just putting the work behind that relationship as well, right? I give a lot to my job, but I need to give to my relationships as well. These things have to be nurtured. It's a constant work in progress. And I believe there is a path to where you can be very successful with your business and maintain, and not even just maintain, thrive and create a very strong family structure as well.
So when you were going just through raising your kid,
Mm-hmm.
what lessons did that bring to you?
Oh, man. You know, it really opened my eyes to what's really important, right? And people talk about legacies, right? What is a legacy, right? For me, it's not about leaving a trust behind for my children or my child or my family. It's more about what impact did I have on this world? That's my legacy, right? How are people going to remember me? Because the money really doesn't matter at the end of the day. So I'd say, the lessons I learned were to refocus what's really important in life, refocus what drives you, right? And as I'm going through this journey of building a business and being an entrepreneur, communicating that to my daughter, right? Who knows what college is going to look like when she graduates? She's 14 now, right? I mean, I'm not going to downplay higher education by any means, but I tell my daughter, look, I'll support you in whatever you want to do with your life under two conditions. First one, it has a positive impact on society, one way or another. And people look at all these different jobs and things you can do out there, and they may not at first glance see what positive impact it has on society, but there's always usually something. My wife is a hairstylist, right? She's been doing it 17 years. She crushes it. But she makes a positive impact on society. She makes people feel good about themselves. She gives people an environment where they can be open and talk through things with her. She's basically a therapist too, right? So that's great, right? So condition one has to make a positive impact on society. Condition number two, you have to give it your all. You can't go, no complacency in our family. You go big, right?
Have you heard about the casuals versus, I forget what it is, but there's just this idea of being a casual, and that there's casual entrepreneurs, like people who just go about life casually.
I haven't heard of it, but I see that. Now that you say it, now it puts a name to it. Yes. I mean, I see more of that for sure.
Yeah. So I get this idea, I forget what it's called, like the non-casual, but I don't know if you've ever listened to the Founders podcast.
I have, yeah.
And so one of the episodes, the host is talking about how he just really despises casuals.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing for me.
It's tough because it is like, I try not to really judge anyone.
Right.
But often, so often, like I hear someone complaining, and if it seems like they aren't really giving their all. Right. It's like, what are you complaining about?
What do you expect?
Yeah.
I mean, I see that. And that's so funny. Casual entrepreneur, I definitely, that puts a lot into shape for me mentally. Yeah. I typically say, I mean, this is a very generalized statement, but like nobody wants to work anymore. They just expect things to happen, right? Or they'll post some stuff on social media and expect that to be the catalyst for their success. And I don't know anybody, I haven't read any book, I haven't heard any podcast, watched any interview, met anybody that's extremely successful at some degree that didn't work their ass off for it. Pardon my language, but, it takes work, and it takes sacrifice. And there might be a lucky casual entrepreneur out there that something falls in their lap. But once something falls in your lap, you got to work to maintain that, right? If you don't have the systems in place. And obviously we look at tech I mean, we're in a very exciting time right now where tech is emerging and developing and evolving every single day. Running a boring mortgage operation, I'm extremely involved on the tech side of things because it's exciting. And even when we met last week, we had you said something extremely profound that made me want to connect with you more, and I'm glad we're here. But the question was basically, 100 years from now, what guardrails should we be putting in place to, protect the direction that the AI technology is going? And, we went around our table and everybody had pretty similar thoughts on it, but what you said really spoke above everybody else. And I'll repeat or why don't you just go ahead and talk about it? Do you remember?
Yeah, I mean, of course. Yeah. So, I mean, what we were talking about is just with AI, it is going to be becoming more relevant. Sure. and taking jobs and becoming a real thing that causes a lot of heartbreak for families when a dad loses his job because right. AI takes over.
Right.
And then feels meaningless because he has no work to do. And how right. does he put his skills to work? But when it comes to guardrails and looking really forward into the future and what is possible with AI, thinking about us as beings and mm-hmm. that the work that we do is not necessarily just for materials and for working, just mm-hmm. like literal labor on doing something to provide for our family. In a world where everything's automated by AI, it might be very meaningless for some. Sure. Initially. It might feel that way because mm-hmm. what work can I do?
Right.
When I think about there being no problems to solve, what I love doing is solving problems.
Right. Yeah.
So what happens when there's no more problems to solve? That's mm-hmm. very scary. But there are problems that are not external. There's so many problems that are internal. Mm-hmm. And even if all the external problems went away, there's thousands of internal problems that we sure. all have to work through.
Yeah.
And so the work becomes, how do I become a better person today and mm-hmm. tomorrow and the day after? And it becomes an internal battle yep. rather than an external struggle.
I love that because, I've got a stack of books I want to get to. And there's always a reason I can't. Right? There's always a reason I can't.
Yeah.
And I'll travel with them and never even open a book. Well, I'll read on the plane if I don't have work to do. Work. Right? Yeah. We're going to use that. We'll come back to that word. And this is full disclosure on the record. I haven't calculated income for a mortgage in over a year. Why? It's 2025. We literally have technology that will do that and do it better than I could any day. Right? And it's so good that a lot of mortgage companies will warrant their findings through this AI technology. So am I not as good of a mortgage advisor because I don't think so. I think I'm better because that mundane task is now taken out. I'll get tax returns that are 100 pages long. I could spend 4 hours doing that, but then I can help less people, right? So getting these mundane tasks, what we would call work, out of the way maybe gives me that extra 30 minutes that I can sit and read a book or meditate, or I can self-reflect, or I can manifest, right? So when you talked about getting these kind of mundane tasks out of the way and doing the real work within that matters, I went home and I told my wife about that. I was like, man, I met this incredible young guy and he told me this. And, I thought about this a lot. I was like, wow, that's incredible. Yeah, that's the important part, because if people are working on themselves and they have time and then that becomes their self-worth, but more than punching a clock, how would that impact society, right? We might have less school shootings, right? We might have less road rage incidents. We might have a better understanding and bring people back together, right? So that's kind of where my mind took that. I was like, that's incredible. And I'm probably going to carry that with me for a very long time and use that as a definition of, okay, well, I'm automating this, I'm automating that. I'm spending more time with my clients. I'm helping more people. I'm providing more opportunity for my team. And I'm doing the real work within myself that really matters, that makes me a better person to be around, to be in society, to be a better dad, to be a better husband, be a better leader, all of those things. So that was really profound. Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I really agree. I for me, it's been my journey as a person since I graduated school to pretty much do that.
Yeah.
And so, like, in improving every day,
Sure.
that's the journey. It's like recognizing for me, how can I become a better person beyond anything else? And if I'm doing that, I put my faith that I will be able to achieve my goals. And
Sure.
I have to make sure that I'm staying aligned, and that when I'm improving myself, that it's also reflecting in the goals of the real world, because we're not living in that society yet.
Yeah.
But it is amazing how much work can be done.
Yeah.
I went to this ashram, which is like a meditation community, basically, in Tennessee. And I meditated there for like 15 days. And through that, I really got through a lot of some components of my childhood, but it felt like it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
And there's people who will meditate every day, all day long, and never achieve enlightenment,
Right.
as some people have. It's
Sure.
not easy. And that just is like, there's so much work to be done to be a better person, to be more helpful to other folk, and to be more loving and kind, and less materialistic, and being wanting to consume everything rather
shedding
than
the
give.
ego, all that stuff. Yeah.
And definitely with that whole concept of AI giving us the power for self-reflection and empowerment of individual empowerment, there's also this concern, like the deeper concern of that is that won't happen.
Right.
And what will happen instead is that we'll become more immersed in this artificial world.
Right.
And with the emergence of glasses, right now, Mark Zuckerberg, he recently had an announcement about these new glasses that they're doing. And part of his pitch about that was that these glasses were going to reduce your distractions because you're not going to be pulling out your phone. Well, now instead of having to pull out your phone and look at it, it's just going to be
Just
always
staring.
in front of your
It's what you
eyes.
see. Yeah.
And so are we heading towards just a matrix?
Right.
Or are we going to be living in a world where it's not the matrix, it's a world of abundance, and we're all living in just a great, great world
Right.
where we're all happy, living, conscious beings? Or are we going to become less conscious?
I've got an analogy that I came up with regarding AI about 2 years ago. And it was a hypothesis, really. What's going to happen, right? And I think I'm kind of spot on with it. But the analogy I talk about, this is the DJ in me, right? The music guy in me. I talk about, okay, let's look at music media, right? We started off with records. We'll start there, right? Started off with records. Then we went to 8-track. Then we went to cassette tapes, which most people don't realize, but 8-tracks and cassette tapes, that's tape, right? It's actually a very hi-fi form of media for music, but they don't last in the heat of summer very long, right? They can't sit in your car very long before they start melting and that tape gets worn out. And then we went to CDs, right? CDs were awesome until they weren't, right? The lifeline of a CD is like 2 years before it's scratched up and doesn't really play that well. Then digital media came out, right? Or MP3s, right? And when MP3s came out, it changed the way music was composed, the way music was written. When you used to record an album and you were going to put it on a vinyl record, let's say you're Led Zeppelin, right? They would write the album in a conceptual manner that told a story. It was like a book. Because you're pretty much, you're not forced, but when you put a record on, you're going to listen to the whole side A. More than likely. It's very rare you're just going to skip to a song. You're going to let it play. Then you're going to flip the record and you're going to listen to the rest of the story, right? So music was written in a conceptual way to be listened to that way. When the MP3 came out, it was all singles. So people wrote music just for a hit, right? They stopped writing albums for the most part to be conceptual, to tell a story, right? Because people could put it on random, they could skip, they could just go straight to that track. You could just buy that track, right? So it really changed things. And eventually what happened is all other media music outside of MP3s and digital format basically went to the wayside, right? Tapes were no longer relevant. Everybody's, at least in my generation, has a box of CDs sitting in their closet somewhere that they haven't looked at in probably 10 years, right? Maybe more. But something about vinyl still held on. It was a piece of art, something tangible that you can hold. You can listen to the way music used to be written and be reminded of that. And over time, artists started putting out vinyl records again over anything else. Of course, they're going to have their digital stuff because that's how they pay the bills, right? But they started pressing records. And all these there was only a handful of record pressing plants in the world 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Now you have them everywhere. So what I think happened was the digital media came out, MP3 came out, and boom, it just soared up, right? That became the new standard, and it kept rising. And then it plateaued, right? A little bit. I mean, still rising, but it plateaued. And people, I think what was happening there was people like, okay, yeah, this is great. I've got my, we're not going to name any specific streaming platforms on the podcast, but I've got my platform. I can listen to whatever I want, but I really want to listen to an album. So people started buying albums again. And what was really happening was that draw for authenticity, that warmth, those hisses and pops a record gives that you're not going to get from a digital media. And then all of a sudden, again, manufacturing plants for records started coming up everywhere. And then people started collecting records again. And artists are selling records. All of a sudden, we're selling more records in the world than we ever have before, right? So when I tie that to AI, I think it's going to be the same. Obviously, people are trying to understand it. We're implementing it. You have two different people. You have your ChatGPTers. When somebody says, "Oh, ChatGPT," you're like, okay, you're breaching the surface of AI. And then you have people that are really diving in, right? So the popularity is soaring, or it was. I think it's plateauing. Another layer of this is government regulation. These AI companies, they're going to want their royalties out of it. I know, back to the music, right? They're going to want their money, rightfully so. So I think what we're going to start seeing, and we're already starting to see where on social media you can tag things as being AI generated. We're going to start seeing, I think, regulations that are going to require that for intellectual property reasons. There's going to be organizations like performing rights organizations that pay artists, same on the tech side. Once you start having that and you have to tag your content as being AI generated, it's going to lose authenticity. So I think there's going to be a strong draw for authenticity, where when I go read an article, if it's got that AI tag, I may not read it. I want something that's dirty, meaning human flaws and all, grammatical errors, whatever it be, right? Real opinion, real emotion, real soul behind it, right? And I think that's what we'll see. And then we'll figure out how to integrate that into our lives and still have our authenticity and be humans. So that was my whole spiel.
Yeah. Every response I've said has a yeah at the start. I don't like that. Why do I do that? It's just my my pause. It's my
Yeah.
But I could just not say it.
Well, it's better than I'll tell you that. So.
Well, do you think AI will ever have a soul?
Oh man. I don't know. Never. I will say this. I don't think we truly have free thinking AI yet. I don't think it exists. There are guardrails up. And I'll tell you why. If you had a true free thinking AI and I prompted the question, how do you save planet Earth? a free thinking AI would probably say, kill all humans, right? Because we would be seen as a parasite that's destroying our country or our planet. But the responses you actually get, and I know this because I've asked, are reduce CO2 emissions, right? Find better ways to recycle, or, dive into the water crisis, things like that. So I don't think AI will ever have a soul. I think there will need to be, precaution. My wife and I were talking about this the other day, actually, when we were talking about the conversation that we had. And, my daughter actually has, she may want to follow in my wife's footsteps and become a hairstylist. I was like, well, that's a job you don't have to worry about AI taking. And then my wife said, well, what if they do? Could you imagine? And I closed my eyes and I imagine myself sitting in the chair with a robot with a very sharp object behind me cutting my hair. I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't trust the robot just yet to have shears behind me. So there are jobs that just aren't going to go anywhere, that are authentic. Whether people say it or not, part of the human condition is our flaw, right? That's what makes us beautiful, is that we do make mistakes and we can learn and grow, right? And we are free thinking, and everybody's not perfect, Can you imagine a society where everything was just cookie cutter and the same? And, so I don't think that AI will ever have a soul. No.
If nothing changes, it's the same as death.
True.
And so if there's no flaws, everything's perfect.
Yeah.
It's just death.
There's nothing.
So the life is in the change and in the imperfection.
Mm-hmm. 4-leaf clover, right? You'd be in a field full of clovers and you find a 4-leaf clover. Some reason that's lucky. Obviously that's folklore, but there's beauty in the imperfection, right? And we see it every day in everyday life.
What would be the things that you're most excited about right now for your entrepreneurial journey, looking ahead to the next year and potentially next 5 years? Where would you hope to be?
Very excited. So I've been locked in my cave. Well, I was most of last year, some of this year. So I was locked in my cave, got my plan together. I've had to refocus things a little bit in a good way. I'm really excited to scale my operation to set a new standard in my industry, one that is servant-hearted and that is human-centric, human first, right? But when I say those things, there's always a caveat. I always say, hey, look, we're a servant-hearted operation. We do what's right by our clients every single time, but that does not mean we're soft. We're about our business. We get things done, and we are here to dominate. Mortgage companies, we're here to take all of your business from you because we believe we care more and we work harder and we do it better than anybody else. And that's what clients deserve. That's what the general public deserves. A lot of people get into finance or my side of the business because they think they can make a bunch of money. And they can. And I remind my team every day, you can make more than a surgeon does without a medical degree in this business. But our position comes with great responsibility, right? Yes, we can make a bunch of money, but we can make a bunch of money helping people, right? Not everybody feels that way in my industry. Some people prey on people's ignorance. And I don't mean ignorance in a bad way, just lack of education there, right? Ooh, I can make a bunch of money on this person because they trust me and they're not going to shop me around. Well, we just give people the best rate possible from the get-go. If I'm competing with another lender, I've got a boundary. This is as low as I'm willing to go. And if they go lower than that, good on them, they won, right? So, excitement for my business is really to be able to take our message, our vision, and create a new standard in our industry and space that's respected to where people want to be a part of what we're doing. And if they've got heart and hustle, those are the two things we look for. If they got those two things, we're welcome. They're welcome. If they don't, if they're greedy, money hungry, they don't want to work, they're just casual, not a good fit. Good luck out there. because you're going to run into us. So that's a very conflicting way to approach things because we are servant-hearted, but we're about our business. We're here to dominate because we think people deserve what we offer.
Yeah. I think it'd be awesome for you to share in terms of what servant heartedness means to you and why you think it's important in doing business.
Yeah. So going back to the heart and hustle aspect that I mentioned, that's really a homage to my parents and my upbringing, right? So my mother, hi Mom. My mother is just an incredibly sweet woman. She's tiny. She's like 4'11", 4'10". She's vicious though, but she's the youngest of 6, and she is cared for and taken care of. Well, not only myself and my older brother, but my father as well. But she's cared for every one of her siblings, including her parents. She has one sibling left, but she's cared for all of them pretty much to their deathbed. Now, some of her siblings had family that cared as well, but you know, she's taken care of a lot of people. And her servant-heartedness is something her mother instilled, right? And I take that from my mom. So the heart comes from my mom, just doing right by people. And if you do that, yes, some people are going to take advantage of you. But to me, that's the cost of doing business the way we want to do business. Let them take advantage. That's their problem. For that one person that took advantage of me, I've got 10 other that really appreciate me, right? And that means everything to them. So when we talk about the heart, the servant-heartedness comes from my mom. One thing that I am going to tweak with that is taking care of myself too, right? You've got to take care of yourself. You can't ignore your health because, you know, just like in an airplane, when that oxygen mask drops, they tell you every single time, put yours on first. Because if you're unconscious, you can't help little Jimmy next to you, right? So you got to take care of yourself so that you can really serve others. The other part of the heart aspect is the heart of a champion. You know, shout out to Rudy Tomjanovich, any Houston Rockets fans. But business is not always easy, and it can chew you up and spit you out. And you could be let down. You could be heartbroken if your close friend doesn't go with you, right? What I say is, look, heart of a champion means if you get knocked down, sit down for a minute, take a beat, and get back up and get back after it, right? So that's the heart aspect. The hustle aspect is an homage to my dad. Growing up, we grew up extremely modestly. I don't use the word poor because I think that's relative to where you are. And my definition of poor growing up is very different than a lot of other people that had things worse off, right? So we grew up modestly. Grew up in Longview, Texas, in the middle of the woods, beautiful woods, but in a trailer house. I don't call it a manufactured home. We lived in a trailer house, right? My dad worked his butt off, 3 jobs, went to school full time to create a better life for us. My dad's also a classically trained musician, as I mentioned. So he would play music on the weekends. And at that time, this was the 80s. Sorry, juice, I'm old. This was the 80s. But at that time, that's what Dad did. Dad punched the clock, right? And Dad worked his butt off. And Dad didn't have much left to give when he got home. But that's just what our society created at that time. So I learned how to work hard for my dad. My dad, you know, got his degree in manufacturing engineering. When I was 8 years old, 2 punk kids burned our trailer house to the ground. And our big come up was moving to a duplex in Houston, where I was around drugs and gangs and all of that. But I digress. We can touch on that later. But I learned how to work for my dad. And I learned how to side hustle for my dad too. My dad always said, you know, no matter what happens, I can always go play drums and put food on the table. And that's obviously always stuck with me because I still side hustle. Now, DJing is not just a side hustle. It's also very therapeutic for me. But, you know, Warren Buffett says you got to have 3 revenue streams, right? So going back to the heart and the hustle, what I'd tweak from my dad on that lesson is there's more to life than just punching a clock, right? Work hard, but don't forget to be present with your family. That's something I struggle with, that I'm constantly trying to be better. You could be a body in a room, but you're not necessarily present, right? Putting the phone down, engaging, looking at people in the eyes when they're talking to you, actually hearing what they're saying, even if it's for 15 minutes. When I look at my daughter, those are things she's going to remember. Oh, yeah, Dad worked hard. He created this awesome life for us, but he wasn't really around. I mean, he was there. That's not what I want my daughter to think. I want her to be like, you know what? Dad did this thing. He taught me some great lessons. He talked about these things and his struggles growing up or going through the process and growing up, but really the process of the business. He talked about his struggles, and what's happening is I'm shaping a beautiful human that will make a positive impact on society. That's my vision and goal. But yeah, the heart and hustle, I used to let where I come from drive me. And there's more to this. I used to have a proverbial chip on my shoulder that was, I've got to prove something to somebody, or I got to prove something to myself, or I've got to prove something to the universe. And it wasn't until 3 years ago that I changed that mindset. In full disclosure, I'm 42. I'll be 43 in 4 days. It was, I did a mastermind with Clinton Sparks. He's a big time music producer. A lot of people may not even know his name, but I guarantee you've gotten down to some of his music. He's produced a lot of stuff, a lot of the good hip hop stuff coming out in the 90s and 2000s. Clinton Sparks did. But I told him this story basically. And he's like, that's bullshit. He's a very matter-of-fact guy, definitely East Coast guy. He's like, that's bullshit. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, that's what's driven me to where I am today. He's like, it's a negative mindset. And I was like, no. He's like, no, it is. You're trying to prove something to somebody or whatever. He's like, you have to prove anything to anybody. Be you. Find another reason to drive yourself. And again, very introspective. I took that and I was like, damn, he's right. This whole lifetime, I've been letting negativity drive me. And I can let my childhood traumas, the house being burnt down, other things that I've overcome define me. And it'll get me far with that chip on my shoulder. But is that the right way? Yes, I can let those things define me, but I get to choose how it defines me, right? And I really changed my mindset. So it really, instead of holding on to what was driving me, which I did for many, many years, my drive now has shifted to how do we make the greatest positive impact through my operation on society? So same result, I'm still highly driven, but in a much better place, in a much more positive mindset.
So powerful.
Yeah.
So powerful. We're almost out of time.
Okay.
I want to ask you one final question.
All right.
So I'm 24.
Mm-hmm.
I'm old for some, young for a lot of people.
Sure.
Young for most,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a lot of young entrepreneurs out there, of course. But the entrepreneurship journey can start anywhere.
Right.
It really, age is just a number.
Yep.
And it's a path that is self-defined.
Yep.
I always compare myself to me a year ago, me yesterday, not necessarily some other person that I see on the internet.
Right.
Because I don't even know those people.
Yep.
The only person I really know and have to judge is me.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of people out there who, regardless of where they are just starting out, no
Sure.
matter the age. When you were just starting out, what would be advice that you wish you had known earlier?
Sure.
That you would like to tell them so they don't feel like they have to learn the lesson 3
Right.
years, 4 years down the line, and that now they'll know.
So a lot of this stuff is going to be cliche, right? Because it is, right? But there's power behind it. So embrace the struggle, right? When I was starting out with my business, the market was not on my side. I left a good paying job with a decent amount of money in the bank to take this leap. I was like, well, now's the time. My wife does okay with her job. I've got money in the bank. Well, as soon as I left that career for this one, the market tanked. And I'm like, okay, well, at least we got money in the bank. And at least my wife has a good, business. Well, then all the money in the bank's gone. And I'm like, well, at least my wife does okay. At least we got that. And then we get to a point where I'm working 10, 12-hour days, but I'm not bringing in any money. And I remember I was DJing hard. That got to lean into that. I was DJing a lot just to keep money coming in. And it got to the point where it's like, I've got to do something where I still maintain the work I'm doing here, but I'm bringing in some money. So I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I would put on a blue Amazon vest, and I would go deliver packages in my own vehicle till about 7 or 8 a.m. Listen to podcasts, listen to books, audio books, whatever I could do to try to make the most of that time. Come home, take a shower, work a full 10, 12-hour mortgage day, not getting paid doing that one, just to keep money coming in, right? And when all the savings were gone and it was the financial struggles were starting to wear on my wife in our relationship, I remember she said something. It was one night we were sitting in bed, and she said, I went 3 months without a paycheck other than what Amazon was providing, which was a couple $100 a month, or a week, not a lot. And she said, how much longer do you think we can sustain like this? And I had this feeling that I'd never felt before. I closed my eyes, and it wasn't like my life, I guess it was my current life flashed before my eyes. Waking up at 3 a.m, leaving at dark, putting on that vest, backing into a very expensive brick mailbox in a very nice neighborhood in my car and destroying it, and then all the money I made that week is just gone. All these things flashed through my eyes, and I came back to, and I just remember thinking, this is that moment where either I quit and I take 2 steps back and I never know, or I keep pushing forward and this is that moment where people, they either never know or they become successful. And I remember telling my wife, I am too far in. I can't quit now. This is one time in my life that I'm going to keep pushing. And thank God I did, because the work that I put in, the sacrifices I made then are what paves this success today. To this day, that Amazon vest is hanging in my office as a constant reminder what it took to get there, right? But the lessons, I would say, are embrace the struggle, right? There's times in my life, in my journey, where nothing has worked out. There's those days you wake up where, we've all seen it, like you're it's raining and your umbrella breaks, and, you go get your coffee and you spill it on yourself. There's those days and times and periods that you go through where just nothing is lining up like you want it to or expect it to. Embrace it, right? Sometimes when things are going like that, I'll chuckle. I'd be like, what's next? Like, bring it on. I'm ready for it. So embrace the struggle. You never know what success is behind the next day, right? So many people have worked so hard on something only to stop short right before they find that success, and they'll never know. So don't give up. Believe in yourself. Embrace the struggle. Surround yourself with professionals and individuals that support you, whether they understand what you're doing or not. And sometimes you'll have friends that don't support you, that don't really get what you're trying to do. Embrace that too, because one day they're going to know, right? So embrace the struggle, because it does get better. And don't get me wrong, it'll never be all clear. You're always going to have some struggle. There's never a point where you're like, this is it, I've made it. Unless, you're that kind of person. For me, I'm like, what's next? What else can I do? And I'm building my business not to sell off to the highest bidder. Don't get me wrong, everything's always for sale, right? If somebody comes along and they want to write me a fat check for my business and they're going to instill the values and the goals that we have in mind, I'll consider it. But then I'll take that money and say, what else can I do that makes a bigger impact than I was making before, right? So embrace the struggle. Focus on milestones versus your long-term goal. In fact, look at your long-term goal, live in there, and then work backwards to where you stand, trying to understand what milestones you have to clear, what hurdles you have to clear, so that when you start that journey back again, you're ready for it. One other thing I would say is don't ever be complacent. Shed your ego. Always work on yourself, whether that be meditation, therapy, whatever that looks like to you, reading. My library is the most boring library. I mean, probably not to you, you'd probably love it, but most people, it's like Alan Watts books and professional development books. That's pretty much all it is, right? There's no fiction. I love fiction, but I don't watch fiction much, but I just constantly try to improve, be better. I mean, I always say at the end of my life, I call it my Saving Private Ryan moment, where, you know, you're the old man in the hospital bed and your whole family's around you. And he looks up and he's, "Tell me I lived a good life." I don't want to have to squeeze those words out. I just want to look up and know it. And the people around me know it too. And I could save those last words for, you know, really impactful things to my family. But yeah, embrace the struggle, shed the ego, don't be complacent, and keep going.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Michael. Appreciate it.